So until now, for quite a while, I've been discussing a Nedarim, exactly how the nether is, what you mean, Lashon B'nai Adam, what nether goes. From now and on, we discuss to get rid of Nedarim. Now, we had seen earlier in the Masechta, and I'm going to revisit that again, the difference between Charata and Hafara. The difference between Charata and Hafara. Okay, so Charata is where the person says, I regret making the neder. Hafara, or when you open with a Pesach, is that you say, had I known this, I wouldn't have made the neder. Had I known this, I wouldn't have made the neder. And we saw a beautiful Ran. I sent it to you on your phone. You got a chafal from the base, right? I sent it to you on your phones, right? The Ran, it's a Ran. It's on from Chaf Tes on the base. Chaf Aleph on the base. Chaf Aleph on the base. Chaf Aleph on the base. It's an Ein Chachamater Elkein Abor Adalos. So in the third parak, in the third parak of Nedarim, we saw that there are four Nedarim that you do not need Hatara on. We said Nidre's reason, Nidre that is a person to do something, Nidre Havoi, Nedarim of nothingness, Nidre Shagagais, and Nidre Einsim. So all those four Nedarim, they don't require Afar. They're not Nedarim. So we have over here in the Sugya, we mentioned Charata, and we mentioned Afar. The Lashon of the Ran is very beautiful. Ein Chachamater Elkein Arba Nedarim Halalo. Klaimar. You have it? Yeah. Klaimar. She'ein lo lahate b'Charata, that you shouldn't go ahead and use Charata, regret, to matter a neder. El b'Pesach, only with an opening. Sha'neder kashu niter b'Pesach, a neder, when it's taken out through a Pesach, mochiach misocho, it shows from within the neder, shu neder b'tois, v'havikeina born nedarim, and it's like the four nedarim. In other words, those four nedarim, the reason for those nedarim are for various reasons. They're to be mizar as a person, or you are forced to do something, but it's really not a neder. So when you make a neder through a Pesach, had I known this, I never would have made the neder in the first place. It's a neder b'tois. It's like the neder wasn't there at all. That's what. Avol b'charata, if you should call neder shunita b'Pesach, any right? Avol b'charata loy, but charata not. Behind Utaimo, what's the reason? The other Pesach and charata. What's the reason that Pesach is better than charata? If you should call neder shunita b'Pesach, any neder that you take off with a Pesach, hari anoy the roimer, the noida says shafilu b'tchila keshenadar. Ilo yisi noisin eliboy oise Pesach. Had I known this piece of information, had I known this Pesach, then what? Then I never would have made it in the first place. Oh, you know that. V'nimtzay nedra b'tois. Aval neder shu nita b'charata. A neder that's taken off with charata, a neder that you take off with charata, eina might see im atzmai shum inyan. It's not that you found anything unique. Shilo hoye noisnay eliboy mitchila shlo hoye there. That if you would have known, you never would have made the neder. Guys, charata, you're not finding out any information that you know before. What are you saying? Elishu Oimer, you know what he's saying? Akshav, he's saying Akshav, Shmitoy Chakas, Oim Yifnei Mehiris Nedarti. I made the neder either because I was angry or because I just impulsively acted. The Akshav ani mischarid al shnedati mi oilam. And now I'm having charata that I made the neder at all. So this is the lashon of the Ran in the Chaf Aleph on the base that shows us that, in fact, it says that a Pesach is a much better way of taking off a neder than charata. Why? Because the neder really, the Pesach is, you're removing the neder completely, as if I didn't know about it. I don't want the neder at all. I never wanted it. Had I known this, I never would have made it. What's charata? I did make it, but I have charata. I regret. But so regret means what? That the neder is there. So it's better Pesach where you're saying I wouldn't have made the neder at all, rather than charata that I regret my actions. So our parak is going to deal with mostly guys with a Pesach. The Nedarim that I made al yedei Pesach, and that's going to be from now on really. And this is the reason that they didn't learn Masechta Nedarim. This is the reason they didn't learn Masechta Nedarim. I shared it with you once. I found at the Ramban wrote a pirish on Nedarim, He wrote a Pirush on Nedarim, and after the whole, it's all said and done. At the end, it says something fascinating. He says, "Mar Rav Yehudai Hichmer v'Amar Ein Benoi Mishiyadei Lahater Mechilas Nedarim V'Shvuis Ve'Ein Benoi Loshin Marpe." Right? We don't know. Umeshani Mar Rav Yehuda Le'Nishnish. In other words, we don't know how to take it off a nether. You know why? Le'Nishish Nedarim B'Yeshiva. It wasn't learned in the yeshiva. And why wasn't learned in yeshiva? Is because you're not supposed to make Nedarim. We spoke about kala noider kilubana bama, like you built up a spayach. The kala mekaimai, Reb Nassim says ki'ilu what ki'ilu yomakravalov. So you're not supposed to. Oh, 1 second, I have a way out. I'll make a nether. I have a way out. I'll make a nether. So they didn't want to learn the Masechta to tell you there's a way out, and it wasn't learned for 100 years. And that's why says Rav Reuven Margolis, who wrote the Margolis Hayam, he wrote many svarim. He says that that's why Nedarim is Meshuna. That's why Nedarim, because since it wasn't learned, it wasn't edited. It wasn't edited. So this now is the reason why, because the Pesach from now to the end of the Masechta basically is dealing with Pesachim, how to get rid of a neder. How do you get rid of a neder?
Like it never happened.
No, but again, we don't want you making the neder. But if you can take it off, so take it off. So it's not so bad. Pesach is the mafreya. Yeah. No, well, I'm not sure. Hatoya by there's a difference between hatorah and hafara. Okay, so hafara from a husband is mikan lahaba. Hatorah through a chacham, either a mumch or 3, is oikel lemafreya. It's like it never was. Right. That's okay. So there's 3 things. There's charata and hatara, and there's hatara and afara. So charata is within charata and hatara are both done by the dayan. Charata, we said, is worse than what? Than hatara. In fact, what we just saw in Chaf Aleph Amid Beis was a shita that charata doesn't work. For that reason, for that ran, because you're not really saying you want to make the neder. You're saying I made it, I regret doing it, and that's the svara why it doesn't work. In other words, you made a neder. Your voice, you said something. What mechanism is taking it off? It's not confessional, right? Right. Oh, I regret. Good, Toiv, you regret. You killed somebody, you regret, right? Sorry, it doesn't work in Judaism. It doesn't work. My bad. It doesn't work in Judaism, right? Guys, you're here. So I regret making a neder. There are people who hold charata. It doesn't work for that reason. Masha Enkein, everyone holds a Pesach works. So what are you saying by a Pesach? I never would have made it. It wasn't there. It's a whole different ballgame. I think it's a nice like doma to the Pesach as a Pesach, pun intended. All we're about to do. I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But they began learning it. But they didn't learn in yeshivas for 100 years, and they didn't learn it at the time when they edited. It's the Goyim who edited the Gemaras after the period of Ravina Ravashi with the last name Meroyim. They wrote it down, but it was edited by the Goyim. You know, the Tekufa between the Goyim and the Rishonim, between the Amoraim and Rishonim was the Goyim. You have Sajid Goyim, High Goyim, Shir Goyim. So no, I'm saying that they're right. In other words, they didn't want them to. No, they didn't want to know how to get out of it. So in Mela, yeah, Fashteitza. But again, it's fascinating, and that's why Lashon Nedarim is Meshuna. That's really why it really is. It's why it's such. Again, I go through the Masechta. I try reading it. It doesn't. I've learned a little Gemara in my life. It just doesn't.
Easier than Shkolm.
Right? Well, Shkolm is Yerushalmi. This has Yerushalmi terms, by the way. Shkolm is Yerushalmi. It's nothing to talk about. And Shkolm is not such a hard Yerushalmi. Trust me. I'm starting. Yeah, I'm telling you, this is Yerushalmi stuff. Okay. Anyway, let's begin. It's very, very geschmack. Rabbi Eliezer says, a person can use his mother and his father as a Pesach. Can use your mother and father as a Pesach. So, what do you mean you could use your mother and father as a Pesach? What are you talking about? Let's see the Ran right away, without further ado, to the left. We say to him, had you known if you would have known that you're mevazi your parents by making Nedarim, that Nedarim is so easy that you make them. Again, guys, you see Nedarim is Sharazach. Ukadaminon, Dakru Rishia, the Karu, Rishia bar Tzedika, Rishia bar Rishia. They call a Russia the son of a tzaddik, call him Russia ben Russia. In other words, your parents who's a tzedkiah becomes a Russia because again, the mother of Vesa, right? All of a sudden, showing, had you known you'd be invited, people would speak derogatorily about your parents because you make Nedarim, right? Kluma, you see neither when you made the neder, or lashon acher, sheyomru sh'ata l'marata mehem. People say you make Nedarim, shaf hemes also ben Nedarim. In other words, where do you learn it? Right, but you learned to sew in your house. Shusa did the Yenuka Bishuka Adavu Adavima. The words of a child in a marketplace are either the mother or the father, Gemara says at the end of Sukkah. So in other words, you guys have built in Pesach. Had you known that you going ahead with disparaging your parents by making a neder, either because people are going to call you a person that Nedarim is kal, or that you learned from your parents, because would you have made the neder? Says Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer, that is a good Pesach. Says Rabbi Eliezer, that's a good Pesach. And the Chacham say, Oyster. They say not, and the Gemara will explain the reason. Amar Rav Tzaddik. Rav Tzaddik is going to says to Rabbi Eliezer, guys, what? Had you known that, did we despairingly by making Nedarim when you made Nedarim? In other words, if you, Rabbi Eliezer, are going to go ahead and use your parents as a means of getting rid of a neder, why don't you use the Rabbeinu Shalom also? You might as well use the Rabbeinu Shalom. You could do the same thing. You could do the same thing by the Rabbeinu Shalom as well. So why not that? Why not that? Why don't we say the same thing over there? So imkain ain't Nedarim. If so, there's no Nedarim. We'll see what that means. We'll see what that means. Okay. So the setup is, we have Rabbi Eliezer saying you can use your parents as a Pesach. The Chachamim disagreeing. Rav Tzaddik going ahead and attacking Rabbi Eliezer, saying that if you use your parents, you can use Hashem. And the retort of him in Cain ain't Nedarim. We'll see what that means. Umay the Chachamim Rabbi Eliezer b'dava shebeinoy levein aviv v'imoy shepoisn lebekavod aviv v'imoy. If it's something between you and your parents, that you could take it off. In other words, let's say you had a fight with your parents, and you moved on enough from your parents can't have enough from you. Then you could use your parents, then you could do it. So the Chacham say there are, to go ahead and say in a general thing that had you known you'd be mavaz your parents, that you don't say. But if a Pesach, if the neder is opposite your parents, if your neder is to your parents, then the Chacham would be moida, then it would be a Pesach. I think Gemara will discuss this. For Oidam, Rabbi Eliezer, in addition, Rabbi Eliezer said, if something at the time, in other words, if something mitzias is not in the world at the time you made the neder, and then it comes about later on, could you go ahead and use that as a Pesach? Says Rabbi Eliezer, yes. The Chachamim Oisrin, and the Chachamim say you can't. The Chachamim say it ain't poiskin b'noilad. Okay, look at the Rush. The Chachamim Oisrin. The Chachamim Oisrin. The Taima, the Charata mishum sh'ayidei Charata nekar neder meikaroi. The neder is going to be oikel lemafreya. Something that's not around, it can't make the neder a tois in the beginning. Because of this, you wanted to stop making a neder because it wasn't in the world. In other words, what's the svara of Pesach? Had you known this, right? Had you known this, would you made the neder? Guys, look at me. Guys, had you known this, would you made the neder, right? That's the Pesach. You couldn't have known this. It wasn't in the world. So that's the reason the Chacham say you can't be Pesach with the neder, with a noilad. No. Now this is only a noilad, as we're going to see, that's not matzui. A noilad that's matzui, that's found, right? That you could, the Chacham mamoida. So there's different levels of noilad. There's different levels. By Rabbi, we had from Rabbi Kiva, guys. Rabbi Kiva came along, guys. We had the famous kasha. Kalbasvu said, had you known that I would be what I am, would you be mudahana? And what do you say? If I knew you go ahead one halacha, knew we write even one paragraph, right? We Fred Taisis, Hakim Pesach b'noilad, and for Taisis, once it's a Kabbalah of Torah, that's considered already shine. That's once a person is makabel to learn, that already shine is considered you're there already, right? That was the Taisis. But again, so that's a noilad, yeah. What? This is talking about hatara. Hafara is what a husband does. A husband or a husband or father to his katana, or naira or a naira when with in combination with her betrothed. Naira Marasa, the Pirak Naira Marasa deals with that. That's hafara. Hatara is in hatara. There's two ways. There's pesach and there's harata. Okay, so again, if you no, it's only going on pesach. The Rush used lashon charata. I don't know exactly how he's working charata. I guess the charata is after you have the pesach. In other words, there's two types of charata. Guys, charata is what I was angry when I made it. I regret. That's not the charata the Rush is talking about. My charata is I have a pesach that had I known this, I regret. I have charata making the neder. Meaning, regret means simply the following: I know I made the neder. I have no reason to take the neder off. I regret doing it. A pesach is had I known this, I never would have made the neder in the first place. That's also a type of regret. You know.
So said, I'm not going to go to my daughter's castle. And she got engaged. You feel bad. Like you go and have karata. So let's see what a noilad is. We're doing noilad now. Let's see what noilad is. So v'oidam Rebbe Lazar paiskim b'noilad v'cham oisrin ketzad ama koinim shein nenel ish pliny. Right? V'nasa sefer, and he became a sefer. Now you need a sefer Torah. You need tefillin. You need a shtar. Oishayim meisias b'noi. He's marrying off his son. V'omar il yusi yadei shunasa sefer. Had I known that this guy would come a sefer, Oishayim meisias b'noi. Right, Bekariv, or I'm marrying off his son Bekariv. Well, you see, neither I wouldn't made a neither. So that is considered what? That's considered noilad, and therefore you will not be. I got to go in. Amar, either you see a day of shunasa besakneses, or you see neither. I went to make a neder. So these are cases of these are cases of noilad. These are cases of noilad. Okay, now. Let's see the Gemara and go back and do a run. Now, my ein Nedarim. Now, again, what did he say? What did he say? Said Rav Tzaddik to who? To Rabbi Eliezer. If you're going to tell me you could beseich to keep the covet of, you're going to say the covet makan. So he said, if that's the case, ein Nedarim. What does it mean, ein Nedarim? So I'm Rabbi in Cain, ein Nedarim nitarim yafa. Don't turn the page yet. In other words, if there would be a Pesach with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the regret of making the neder would not be true. Guys, how does the Pesach work? Outside, before we get it, let's go further. How does the Pesach work? Had I known I wouldn't have made the neder. Now, what happens if he's not telling the truth? What happens if he's not telling the truth? Then mean he wouldn't have made the neder anyway, right? Good. So what are you going to say to the guy? What are you going to say? Had you known the Rebbeinu Shalom would be upset at you, would you made the neder? Even if he would have made the neder, he's going to lie and say I didn't. Ain't Nedarim Yafa. They wouldn't be taken off Yafa. You know why? Because the guy doesn't mean it. Which person is going to be mechusif to say, had you known the Rebbeinu Shalom? And Yitaka would have made the neder anyway. But he's so. What about kibbut of? Had you known you mizalz the appearance, you made the neder in the first place? Says the Chachamim takanat. Bizel bezach says the Chachamim. Just like no person is a mechutzif to say, had a God. Of course I wouldn't have made it. No person is a mechutzif to say, had I known. Some people really they wouldn't care about their parents. Let them call my parents in Russia. Let them call my parents a mizalzel in Nedarim. So says the Chachamim, that's the reason why you cannot be Paiseach, Sai b'makayim and Sai parents. Rabbi Eliezer says no. Eliezer says, Yimakam, I agree with you. But makayim, no person, we don't trust the guy, right? No person's going to go ahead and say, Masha'en came when it comes to what? To his parents, Ken Zayin Zechatim, to where a guy would do it. Let's see the Ran inside. Says the Ran. My ein Nedarim, Amra Abaya, 5 lines up. My ein Nedarim, Amra Abaya, in Cain, ein Nedarim Yitarim Yafa. Shafilu mitchila, even initially, Lehoya Nimna, he went the hell back. They covered on Makim. Lo Yayis Panav Bekach. Lefnei Chacham. Person would have the chutzpah and say in front of the Chachamim, of course, I know. V'yishaker. V'yomer, ila yisi hedeya, lo yisi noider. Nimsa shein nedarim mutarim yafa. Because no person is going to go ahead and say the chutzpah that umishum hachi moide Rebbe Eliezer Rabbanan shein poisem loy b'kavod hamakom. Therefore, Rebbe Eliezer is moide. Good. Umiu b'kivud of ve'aim b'kivud of ve'imoy palik. They talk argue. They're Rabbanan Savri. They're Rabbanan of the opinion. The Sfira lahu lo yishna b'kivud hamakom v'lo yishna b'kavod of ve'imoy. No difference. Ein adam meyis hilka ein poisken. No person's going to have the chutzpah to say, had I known my parents, people would speak disparagingly about my parents, that you are the son of Rishayim. No person's going to have the chutzpah to tell that, even though what? You would. So therefore, there's no difference. Eliezer Sava, no. The Chivin HaMakom, who they know the meyes. Ava b'kavod of v'imay meyes, Hitaka would be mechutzif, and therefore when he says, had I known, we believe him. Since a person Taka would have that chutzpah, and since he would have that chutzpah, Hilkach, when he says that, had I known something, then Paiskin would go ahead and use it as a Pesach. Okay, so we have one shot in the Mishnah. Okay, outside again. We have, can you use Kivud Av as a Pesach? Says Rabbi Eliezer, you can. Says Rabbi Chachamim, you can't. Says, can you use HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a Pesach? Everyone says you can't. Says Abaye, what's the reason everyone says you can't? Because what's the Pesach? Had you known God would be upset at you when you made the neder, what are you supposed to say? Yeah. Taka, you may say yeah, right? But you're not going to say it. So therefore, you're going to lie. And therefore, ein nedarim natirim yafa, because you're lying. Says the Chachamim, that's the exact same read by Kivud Av Ve'aim. No person's going to say, had you known they'd be mizalz your appearance, but you done it anyway? He goes, no. But he really would have. He goes, no. Says Rabbi Eliezer, no. There are people who Taka would say it, and therefore they're not embarrassed to say, had I known, I wouldn't do it. And therefore, there's a difference, like Rabbi Eliezer, between Kivud Av Ve'aim and Kivud Makom. Okay. Now we have a second shot as to why, a second shot on the Amid Beis as to why, when you make a neder for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you can't use it as a Pesach. Why would you use the HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Rabbi Amar, in Cain, ein nedarim nishalom l'chacham. You never go to a chacham. Meaning, if you have a HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a neder, why do I have to go to Talmud Chacham to take it off? It's built in. I got my built-in heta. Had I known God would be upset at me, I never would have made this neder. Yet it says lo yachel devaroi, right? Who lo yachel el mischal lo yidei acherim. A person can't take off his neder. We saw earlier in the Masechta, guys. Lo yachel devaro. His words lo yachel, but you need another person to do it, guys. You understand? He's not able to take off the neder, but if you're going to use that Kodesh Baruch Hu as a Pesach, he won't go to a Chacham because he can take it off.
You about the Pesach available when he made the neder?
Again, you're telling me the following. You ask the guy, why can't you? What's the reason you can't use HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It says Rava, because every neder you'll have a problem. You'll have a problem that every neder in the world, no one will go to a Chacham anymore.
Because you can't neder. It doesn't have a neder.
Right, you won't have a neder, right?
You don't have a neder because you always have.
But you do have a neder. That's the problem because no one took it off.
It's like saying I'll do the chait, but I know about the tshuva before I do the chait.
It's worse than that. You do a chait, and you think you have tshuva, but you don't have tshuva.
Because tshuva doesn't work.
Because the neder, you're not taking off the neder. I'm making neder, and then, I have a Pesach for the neder. What's the Pesach? Had I known God, so you know what? I know I made a neder. I know it's there, but guess what? No problem. Mutali. Shine. So it says Rabbi, that's why when the Mishnah it said that if you made a neder and used God as a Pesach, you can't do it. So we have two shittas. Says Abaya, ein nitarim yafa, because the guy is going to go to Chacham and lie, because you don't have the chutzpah to say, had you known, I would have made it anyway. So, and you have Rabbi say, no person will go to a Chacham in the first place. You won't go. Why? Because they were built in heta. Okay. Now, why do we say in the Mishnah, guys, the Chachamim were moida to who? The Chachamim were moida to Rabbi Eliezer. If the neder was on the father and the mother, then they could be a Pesach. If the neder was on them itself, right? Says the Gemara, Fred the Gemara Kasha, Tan. Umoida Chachamim Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim are moida to Rabbi Eliezer. Bidova shebeinoi levein aviv. This is our Mishnah. when it concerns something between them, that a neder was made between parent and child, then you could make a Pesach if they cover the imay. Now, Bishlei Medabaya the Amar Imkain Ein Nedarim Mitarm Yafa Hacha over here, Kivin the Ichtzif, since this guy had a chutzif to make his parents asabana in the first place, by Ichtzif lay, he would be a chutzif in the Pesach, and therefore it's a good Torah. Guys, look at me. What's the svara to say Torah doesn't work by a parent? Because what's he going to say? You're going to say, had you known your parents were mezalzel when you made it in the first place? Says the Chachamim, no person would have that chutzpah, right? No person would have that chutzpah. Good. Said Rabbi Eliezer, yeah, the person would have that chutzpah, yeah. Good. So umoida Chachamim Rabbi Eliezer, that what? That in a place where you know they'd have chutzpah, that when they don't have chutzpah, it's a good Torah. This guy, what did he do? He said, my parents can't have enough from me. Oh, that's already chutzpah, right? So now you're going to go to the Chacham and you're going to say, 1 second, how do you know when your parents would be in such tsar from this? Would you have made it in the first place? So obviously, he would have the chutzpah to say, yeah. So when he says no, he means it. Therefore, the Chachamim could be moided to what? To Rebbe Eliezer, according to Bayis Svara. But according to Rava, who says the reason is, a guy's going to go ahead and say, 1 second, I've built into the system, right? So over here also, he's not going to go. Says the Gemara, Peri Geshmak. Tanan, 2 lines from the top. Umoy the Chacham Rebbe Eliezer, v'dava shebeinoy lebeinav v'imoy, shepoiskin loy b'kavod av v'imoy. Bishleim labaya, the amarim kainei nedarim nitarim, hacha kivin the ichtziflei, to make the neder in the first place. To go ahead and say, how do you know, Nitaka? And so Nemelo and what? He tells the truth, we believe him. El Rava the Amar, Imkain Ein Nitarim Nishalim L'chacham, Hacha, Amai Paiskin. Over here, why in the world, where's your Pesach over here? Why would this be different? In other words, he's not going to go to a Chacham. You're worried he's not going to go to a Chacham. Because why? He has built into the system. And for the Gemara Amri, Kivin the Chol Nidre, Leisagi Lahoing the Lav Chacham, since most of the Nedarim need a Pesach, Hachanami Poiskin. Here also, there would be no difference. In other words, since this Neder is Chal, between the two of them, right, and since it's similar to other Nedarim in that extent, we're not worried that it's not going to go to a Chacham. When are we worried? When there wasn't a Neder between them. But when the Neder is between them, then it's no different than any other Isuri Hana, and therefore what? You would have a Pesach. So that's the difference. Achloik is a Baya for Rava in the first case of the Mishnah, by Kivrav and not Kivrav. Guys, good? Okay, now, the second part of the Mishnah was Noilad. Second part of the Mishnah was Noilad, right? The svara of Noilad is, like to rush, let's go over it. Why ain't Pesach and Noilad? Very good. What does a Pesach do? Had you known this fact at the time, would you have made an ed in the first place? If it comes about later on in time, then it wasn't there at the time of the neder. Therefore, the Chacham say it's asa. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Eliezer says no. Okay, now, my timer, the Rabbi Eliezer. In other words, guys, who makes the more sense? Rabbi Eliezer or the Chachamim? Clearly the Chachamim. Guys, in learning, fellas, we have machloikis, and they'll ask my timer. The svar chitzoyna is pretty obvious. You know, the svar, even over here, we can ask like the Chachamim, but mitzad, it makes sense. If the svara is that, had you known, well, if it's not like you couldn't have known, right? So it makes a lot of sense. So now, my time to Rebbe Eliezer Pesachim Noilad, Omer of Kisda Damakra. Okay, let's a little background. Moshe Rabbeinu kills a Mitzri, right? Who the next day they're fighting. Dasan Vaviram, when they kill him, like we right? Mamish, they go to Paro. They use their influence. Moshe is a fugitive. He ends up in Midian. Good. And the guy has 7 daughters to marry off. Yisro takes one in marriage. State in the Torah, Vayoyel Moshe Lasheves Esaish, Vayitain Loi Tzipora Bitoy. He was Vayoyel's Lashon Shvua, guys. Moshe made a Shvua to stay in Midian. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and tells Moshe to go back, what's Pshat? Where do you have a heta to go back? He made a Shvua. Moshe was not there. Kimesu boy anoshim. They died. The people who sought you died. Had you known that those people had been around, right, would not be here, would you have made the neder? Is that noilad? Right? They were when he made the neder, they were around, right? Says Eliezer from Parsha Shmos, the story that we all know. That's you never focus on that, right? When you learn the story, right? It's like you never when you learn the story, you never focus on it. Everything else is in the Mamish Romesh Rabbeinu. You learn Allah Noilad. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. My time to Eliezer. Amar Rav Chisda says Rav Chisda. Dama Krok he makes to call Anoshim Asher Vakshu as Chayayim something like that. Very good. Misa the Noilad who. Mikan shepoislim b'noilan. From here, Rabbana and my tamayu, Kesavri Hanu mimaisi. Did they really die? They didn't die. Rabbi Yochanan mishum Shimon v'Yochai. Kol makom shnemar nitzim u'nitzavim. Anytime it says in the Torah nitzim u'nitzavim, ein eladasim v'aviram. Look at the Ran quickly. Ran brings 5 lines up. Kol makom shnemar nitzim u'nitzavim, ein eladasim v'aviram. Nitzim shnei anachim. Ivrim, Nitzim Nitzavim, right? Then it says Nitzavim Kedavsiv Vayifku Es Moshe V'Sarai Nitzavim L'Krosam, all right? V'lo Yadinim Maninu Alma Oisai Nashim Shahaya Nitzim Shehilshinu L'Moshe Dasam Avir Mayu. They're the ones who told on him. Veim Atzman Haya Ba'adis Kairach, and they were by Adis Kairach. Now, if they were by Adis Kairach, guys, they weren't dead. If they were around, but Dasam Avir much later by Kairach. They weren't dead in Mitzrayim. So what do you see? You see, so this was your raya that you bring, that the Noilat, that they died is Nishkan Raya. Because they weren't physically dead. They were financially dead. They were financially dead. If this sounds familiar, guys, we had this Gemara earlier. Yeah. If this sounds familiar, we had this Gemara in Daf Zayin. Okay, says the Gemara. So now, the Rabbi Yochanan mishum Shimon ben Yochai. Come back in the Gemara Shnema Nitzim Nitzavim Ein Ela Dasam Aviram. Ella Amresh Lakish Sheyodu Minachseyem. They went down. In other words, they were poor. And Amr B'Shum Levi Kol Adam She'ein Le Banim. Any person who doesn't have children, Chashav Kemes Shneimar Havali Banim. Then Ayin Mesa Noichi. That's what Rachel said to Yaakov. The Tanya Abba Chashuvim Kemes Ani Mitzayir V'Suma Mishein Le Banim. Ani Dechsiv Kimesu Kol Nashim. As we just said, Mitzayir Dechsiv Al Noti Kemes Suma Dechsiv Machshakim Hashivani in darkness. Kimesei Olam, Umishain Lebanim Dechsiv Havali Banim I am Mesanaichi. So why do we see? Says the Chum, it's not Noilat because they were alive. So we went through you might remember the Ran that we went through. The Ran said, how do you know? How did the Gemara know that they went down from their Choshim? Maybe they had no children. Maybe they're Mitzrayim. That's what we saw the Chiddush that, but they got better by Mount Torah and then returned by the Egel, like right? So the answer is. Just because you have no children, would you lose influence of the government? Just because you were Mitzrayim, would you lose influence? The only thing that would cause you lose influence of the government, right, is money. Right? When you have money, just a gevir, right? Not. So Memela, so therefore the Chacham say you have no raya Moshe Rabbeinu of Noilad. There's no raya. So yes, Meya Asha. Meya, if you put your hand up, you got to talk.
Mute. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I was trying to mute. Just a small question. Why did they bring the raya from here that Kimesu Kolonashim means it's because he didn't have any, they took away his money? It happened before by Eliphaz, wasn't it? When Esav sent him to kill Yaakov.
Does it say Mesu? Does it say openly in the Torah they died? No, he just says he came there without a stick.
No, it said that's why he took away his money. That's why he didn't kill.
Yeah, but that's a Rashi. It's not a Mefurish Pasuk. It wasn't Mefurish in the Torah. Also, the fact is you need a Pesach. Yankel's saying you need a Pesach. We want to bring a raya from Moshe that is a mafteach to the neder. In other words, the raya Meya is the importance of the raya is to say what was the Pesach to Yisro. Had I known that they would be dead, I would go ahead and make the neder in the first place. Okay.
Also, the Kimesu Kol Nashim is not referring to the Mitzrayim. It's not Dasan Vaviram.
No, Dasan Vaviram.
They wanted to kill him themselves. They wanted to kill Moshe.
They mastered on Moshe.
I know, but the Kimesu Kol Nashim is referring to not that
referring to Dasan Vaviram. Look at the Rashi in the Torah.
Okay.
And look at the Gemara in the Nedarim. Rashi got it from somewhere.
Right.
Okay, so we're holding very good. We held a recap. We saw two machloikas in the Mishnah between Rebbe Eliezer who was makel by Kibbutz Av and the Chachamim who were machmir. The Chachamim were machmir because going ahead and using appearances of Pesach is no different as using the Rebbeinu Shalom as a Pesach. The machloikas the Baya for Rav, why you can't use the Rebbeinu Shalom as a Pesach according to Baya, because why? Because no one will have the chutzpah to lie. Like Rebbe Eliezer won't have the chutzpah to lie sabi your parents. Rebbe Eliezer said, yeah, you would. Or Rabbi's reasoning is because what? You won't go to a Chacham. And now we're machlokes Chacham and Rebbe Eliezer by Noilad. Rebbe Eliezer being raya by Noilad from Dasan Aviram. They weren't really dead. Yeah, right? That they were dead. And therefore, had he known they would die, would you made the ned in the first place? And the Chacham are retorting, they weren't really dead. And we'll see that we'll go more into this tomorrow.